everyone. This is Sandy Alt reporting from the wild, and this is the audio podcast companion to my blog on Substack. This is episode 12, We Didn't Start the Fire.
We're coming under friendly fire. It's all around us, everywhere that we turn. Friendly fire, we're running forever. When are we gonna learn? The friendly fire's gonna burn.
Look around now, and there's sparks flying everywhere. The country feels like a tinderbox. We are constantly blasted with a smokescreen of lies. An arsonist at the top of our government laughs at the rule of law while he sets due process ablaze, ignores the courts, deports immigrants and others lawfully in this country, and proceeds with thievocracy and criminal corruption. This regime does not care what you think. They do as they please in public. They disrespect fallen soldiers. They do not care. They threaten journalists, law firms, universities, and organizations who do not fall on their knees to kiss the backside of the orange blowhole. They do not care. They use the federal government to threaten its citizens, to steal their data so they know everything about you, and to set fire to all normalcy, decency, and democracy. They do not care. And they do it in public while laughing at you. They do not care one whit about you and what you think of any of this. If you are not hearing the 5-alarm fire sirens, if you do not smell the smoke of democracy burning, you are not paying attention. Of course, lots of people in the U.S. got flaming mad when it came to the regime hitting them in their personal pocketbook. When the tyranny tariffs went into effect and the stock market soared downward, the day-glow demon went golfing because, say it with me now, he does not care. His oligarch army of ill-advised advisors jumped on the liars' networks to insist that our retirement and pension plans going up in smoke is really just good news. The outrageous hubris of these two-legged tumors insulting us into the media's microphones for being alarmed while an economy that was healthy and growing just 3 months ago is nuked. Sparks flew when billionaire Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick chastised anyone who might complain about missing a Social Security check. Only a fraudster, he insisted, would object to having the hard-earned benefits they paid into all their lives taken from them. The Muscovites set fire to Social Security. The maggots in Congress plan to blowtorch Medicaid and Medicare to make permanent tax cuts for the wealthy that are stolen from the funds we pay in to provide for the elderly, the disabled, the retired, and the poor. This is arsonist autocracy. How can we not be inflamed? After regaling us time and again with how wonderful the economy was going to be once he took a pretty nearly perfect one from the Biden administration and began destroying it at an astonishing pace, the criminal miscreant at the top of toppling our government then said we have to take some medicine to get well. You know, to get better from having the lowest unemployment rate in nearly 100 years, to recoup from the fastest and best recovery from the COVID pandemic in the world, to get over having the highest new jobs rate, to revive from the toll it has taken on us to have had an economy under Biden that earned the Envy of the World headline on the cover of The Economist magazine, showing a rocket ship roll of American money soaring off the launch platform to symbolize how magnificent our financial state was. The same arsonist reprobate lacquered with spray tan and stinking of self-conceit said in the next breath, "It's good to win." You heard I won, right? He was talking about what he really cares about, his golf game, not us. He doesn't care about us, nor does he even have a concept of who we are. He doesn't care if he burns it all down and us with it. Let's look through this smokescreen at what is going on right now in our country. Here is where I will, as promised, tell you a story from the wild. This one is from my days as a wildland firefighter. While working with the Type 2 Incident Command Team, I got the call to get onto a plane to Arizona, where a trio of lightning-sparked wildfires had merged to create a complex fire. This is a situation that multiplies wildfire danger factors immensely. A complex fire can have multiple hot zones in varying terrains, and often the fire is moving in different directions in different areas, all at the same time. A complex fire is difficult to surround and contain because of this, in addition to the increased size when several fires merge. Fire likes wind, and fires often create their own weather, which can cause winds increasing from one area of the complex and impacting another, or even creating more lightning strikes. It can be a firefighter's worst nightmare. And let me give you some details so you can understand how difficult it is to fight a complex fire, because you might just be able to relate it to where we are at this moment in our nation. Ours wasn't the only incident command team on this fire because of its size and complexity. The morning briefings were so crowded with firefighters, support teams, and media that they looked like a mini Coachella where everyone wore Nomex helmets and boots. After the big briefing, my team would hold its own, and the ops leads would take positions around a strategic sandbox that represented the terrain, the assets, and the prioritized areas. There, we were briefed on the plan of attack and of defense. And remember, we were but one team working in one area. Our incident commander, Mark, never minced words, and so my job as information officer was to find a way to convey the status and the game plan to the press and the public without the colorful colloquialisms and foul language he so eloquently used. But one thing Mark was known to say often that I repeated verbatim was, "The fire doesn't care." Our task was always first and foremost to protect lives, then property, and to especially prioritize critical infrastructure, historic sites, and other particularly vulnerable and valuable areas. In the middle of this three-fire complex, a mountaintop observatory and satellite installation used by NASA, and a telecommunications satellite area that transferred data traveling from coast to coast were identified as top priority, along with the nearby national forests which contained historic ruins. The beautiful forested slopes surrounding these were dotted with residential communities. They were at risk too, and so the county sheriffs issued evacuation orders and sent people door to door to warn those in the path of the fire. We closed major highways to promote the evacuations and to prevent folks from coming back in and creating further risk. We flew in pumpkins, water blivets, by helicopter and placed them in strategic spots for crews to use for mopping up spot fires that flared up behind the trenches they cut. Hundreds of firefighters worked night and day for nearly a week to try to get a line around the complex and contain a fire that only Mother Nature could extinguish. The heat was nearly unbearable, and the smoke. At night, when the fires would lay down in the only slightly cooler temperatures, hotshot crews used cannon-like launching systems to hurl flaming orbs into the fire zone to light backfires that would deprive the main blaze of fuel. An elite team of hotshots went into the burn zone and climbed to the observatory and satellite array to create defensible space around them. They hand-dug trenches and used drip torches to create a narrow perimeter. This was laborious, exhausting, heroic work, and they were in great danger every moment they were on the mountain. A change in the wind could bring the blazes back up on them. A wind-driven spark could ignite the area inside the perimeter and burn not only the protected priorities, but the hotshots themselves. Like all firefighters, they were trained to deploy their fire shelters in the event of a burnover. But we all knew the chances of survival in such a situation were slim to none. I worked with the nearby Apache Nation and with local volunteer fire departments to get the word to all the surrounding mountain communities for folks to get their go kits in their cars and be on ready alert. When I spoke with the residents, I used Mark's catchphrase a lot to answer protests about why they didn't think it was fair for us to make them leave, why they thought they could survive, why they wanted more time or more protection from the fire teams. We're doing everything we can, I would say, but the fire doesn't care about your art collection or your horses or your house or even how much these mean to you or how much you love them. Get whatever you can to safety in the time you have. Gather whatever you hold most dear, prepare yourself in every way you can, and then be ready to leave it all and flee for your lives if it comes to that, because the fire doesn't care. For some, we were able to give them half a day. For others, just an hour or two. And for those directly in the path of the fire, sheriff's deputies knocked on their doors and gave them 5 minutes. Because the fire was devouring everything in its path and bringing it all to ruination. And the fire didn't care. A complex fire is a fair analogy for where we are now in this country. Formidable forces have mounted from numerous directions and have begun devouring and demolishing our democracy. Citizens who are willfully uninformed and chose to wield their vote fueled by disinformation or their worst instincts, or who didn't vote at all, are one part of this complex devastation event. They set us up for this inferno by starving our democracy of the nourishing necessities of active engagement and participation. With their apathy and ignorance and self-centered vindictiveness, they withered our field of self-governance into the dry grass of dwindling participation and devotion. They became the perfect kindling for the thievocracy to toss lit matches into. Then we have the big arson cannon of the MAGA Project 2025 billionaire machine hurling fusillades of fire at the high-priority targets: the free press, higher education institutions, law firms and legal protection organizations, the watchdogs in the government, and the government agencies and their employees who held the institutional knowledge. They deliberately started fires everywhere, all at once. And the callousness and corruption in this autocracy is like a lightning storm, striking repeatedly in tinder-dry areas where our democracy is vulnerable. Every death-dealing, destructive hit igniting havoc and annihilation in nearly every system that sustains governance, and creating fear for institutions and individuals to stand out in the open lest they be struck down. The arsonist-in-chief and his pyromaniac administration has spent every day since January 20th lobbing blazing orbs of destruction at the pillars of our constitutional government and at our rights and liberties in an attempt to burn it all down. The all-consuming flames of uncontrolled greed for money and power are devouring everything, faster and with more intensity than we can possibly get a line around and control. And the firebomber sycophants in the administration don't care. The oligarch, autocrat, fascists in this authoritarian regime don't care. They are deliberately creating the conflagration with impunity. We are going to need to set some kind of a metaphorical backburn to deprive this inferno of a dictatorship of its fuel, to starve it of oxygen and a place to go. As it eats up our government agencies, our administrative infrastructure and support systems, as it attacks our neighbors and threatens our allies and devours our decency and democratic essentials, we are each standing at the strategic sandbox with our own team, and we are tasked with setting the priorities for what we think might be most important to save. And we are going to have to figure out how. And fast. So much has already been consumed and burned to the ground. We are going to need a team of freedom fighters in numbers we have never seen before. Where will we set our perimeter? Who will hold the line against this all-devouring Holocaust? Will Congress take back the power they are constitutionally endowed with, even impeach? Will enough of the citizenry rise up? Will we strike? What will we choose to prioritize to save? Our basic constitutional rights and freedoms have to be top priority for protection. Our rule of law must also be among these treasures we are willing to go to the greatest lengths to save. This is not going to be easy work. While they incinerate our rights, our freedoms, and deliberately destroy our life savings and lifeline support systems, they kidnap people off the street. They declare immigrants dead in the Social Security system to kill their financial means. They deport people to a torture camp in El Salvador without due process, and they refuse to abide by the decisions of the courts. They lie about what they are doing, about what is happening, and about what they intend to do. This is because, like a wildfire, they feel invulnerable and they don't care. They don't care about you and me, about our country, about our Constitution, about our allies, about our neighboring nations, about morality, ethics, decency, rights, freedoms, or justice. They don't think this wildfire they have set will ever come to their doorways, and that is the number one thing we have to have top of mind as we plot our sandbox strategy. They've told us they don't care. They might not care about us or about our democracy, but they care about their money and their power. Like the Tesla takedown efforts causing the brand's plummeting stock values, we have to find bold and brave ways to starve their brazen totalitarian takeover. We have to make sure they don't have what they need to continue to ravage our resources and riches. We can look to other countries to see what has worked when autocrats took over democratically leaning governments. Mass protests in almost unimaginable numbers that clog the streets for days and even weeks and prevent business as usual. Work strikes that leave the systems and infrastructure of their nations crippled until the culprits come to the table with the people. We can bounce up and down like the stock market and the tariff threats at their whim, or we can figure out how to build a defensive line around what we care about most and mount a plan to hold that line. We may have to take risks, suffer losses, and go to great lengths, but if we hold the line and work together, we can perhaps starve the inferno and save what is most precious to us all. Let's return for just a moment to my story about the complex fire for some hope. We mounted a tremendous battle. It took hundreds and hundreds of firefighters, logistics crews, law enforcement, volunteers, citizens, local governments, agencies, and tribes, but we managed to save the highest priority areas, and we didn't lose a single life. We got lucky there. I have been on wildfires where we were not so fortunate in this regard, but this one was a huge win. Some benevolent force smiled on our dedication, our heroes and their efforts, and the unified determination that brought so many together to defeat the blaze. And after days of dry, driving winds and hellish heat, we got a blessed change in the weather. Cooler temperatures, rising humidity, and reduced wind speeds deprived the fire of the heat and air it needed to continue to rage, while the containment lines the team had created kept it from spreading any farther. Ultimately, the flames lulled, and crews cut lines to surround the hot zones to deprive them of fuel, and then started the mop-up and cold trailing. The regrowth began with the next monsoon season, when winds from the west typically bring big rainstorms, which briefly soak the desert with life-giving water. Several years later, I drove through that area, and the scars on the sides of the mountains were still visible. While it will be a long, long time before it heals over completely, every sign of life returning brings hope. I don't think this complex conflagration in our nation is going to be easy to contain. There are many more of us awake and aware to the danger now, but in spite of this, I don't know how much of our democracy we can save, or if we can save it at all. And even if we manage to pull through the latest deliberately ignited hellstorm, will we survive the next? If we can, I imagine that it is going to take extraordinary measures by astounding numbers of us, and it is likely to be an arduously long fight. But what else are we going to do? When firefighters respond to a wildfire, they don't think about the odds. They employ their skills and devotion to do what they can. They work together to create and hold the line, and they don't quit until the fire is out. Neither should we. Are we going to be too slow, too scared, or too intimidated to defend our democracy? I don't think so. I still have my boots and my helmet, and I still remember a thing or two about fighting fire, and with good information, and with shrewd strategy, and hard work, and determination. And I do care. How about you? This has been Sandy Alt reporting from the wild. Every week or so, I publish a written blog on Substack, and then a few days after, I produce a variation of the blog as a podcast like this one, with original music, sound effects, and more. And in the blog, We Didn't Start the Fire, you can see photos of me and my fire gear, of firefighters in the burn area, and of wildfires. If you want more stories from the wild, look for my Wild Mystery series in book, audiobook, and ebook. The one that relates to this particular podcast and others where I tell stories of wildland firefighting is Wild Inferno. It's a mystery thriller, but it's also an homage to my days as a wildland firefighter. Take care.
And the fire's gonna burn.